Welcome to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself with your host, Leo Flowers. I am Leo Flowers. Today's guest is Lily Allen-Duenas, who is an international yoga teacher, meditation guide, and holistic health and wellness coach. She helps overwhelmed individuals reduce their emotional overload and find balanced breath and space for self care. Lily is the founder of the Wild Yoga Tribe and is the host of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. She has taught yoga classes and wellness workshops all over the world. Her journey has led her to a life of flexibility, fluidity, and has fostered a vast reservoir of compassion, curiosity, and creativity. She endeavors to guide others on their path to living a life centered on wholehearted well being. Welcome, Lily Allen-Duenas.
Thank you so much, Leo. It is a joy to be here with you.
I'm excited. I really want to dive into because you got a lot of adjectives in your bio. You got you
It's
got
almost like I'm
creativity.
a writer or something.
Yeah. You got compassion, curiosity. The word that jumps out to me is when you talk about helping people find space for self care. Can you talk to me about that part?
Yeah, absolutely. It breaks my heart how we have started in our Western cultures normalizing sacrifice and selflessness, right? We can put that up on a pedestal that, or even the go, 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 fast paced, overwhelmed, stressed, a to do list that is completely impossible to achieve, which of course generates all sorts of tough sensations. So I feel like with how we're normalizing these personality traits or these lifestyles, we're kind of eliminating self-care. And I know it has come more into focus in the last couple of years. It's been trending on Instagram, self-care Sunday, and it's a photo of a woman with a glass of wine or a cupcake. And I think there's so much more to self-care than just a treat, or something small like that. I think that self-care, it's all about allowing yourself to be first in situations, allowing yourself to be a little selfish. And I would love to note that the word selfless, something we celebrate, means literally, the definition literally means without self or not of self. The root less means without or not of or cannot be. So if you're constantly being selfless and pouring out all of your love and care and attention just everywhere else, or just all of your energy even into your work and into your meetings and into your to your endeavors, your professional world, and no matter what you're pouring it out, you're losing yourself if you're not creating space for self-reflection, silence, self-growth. And so that's why it's one of the big pillars, my big talking points.
Well, you talked about silence and reflection, and at least for me, silence terrifies me. And I didn't realize that until like on a long drive, I need a podcast. I got to talk to somebody. As soon as I get home, I'm putting on music and TV. Like I need some type of background noise. Why is silence so terrifying for a lot of people? Why can't we just sit with ourselves for a little bit?
Right. I think that is a product of how we are now constantly stimulated by it's just normal, right? To always have music or your phone in your hand, or you're even being bombarded with noises outside, the cars, the horns, the honking, the dogs, the or other people talking, or the TV in the background. Even if you're not watching it, it's still on in the corner of every waiting room and every sports bar or just restaurant. It's just we're just so flooded, and I think it's become habit, to kind of have something to focus on that's not our own thoughts. And of course, I think it's very scary when you don't spend time in silence. You don't have that practice. You don't involve that in your life or in your day to day at all. that you start to develop a little aversion for what's going on in there, which isn't always pretty, right? Our minds are so powerful. In the yogic and Buddhist traditions, they can be likened to so many different animals, but I love the image of a wild elephant. There's a story in Buddhism where they say your mind is like as powerful as a wild elephant wreaking havoc in a village. Like it's stomping over everything. It can create so much chaos. And then, or like a monkey swinging from branch to branch to branch. If you've ever been around monkeys before, which I've spent a lot of time in India and Nepal, and they're everywhere. They're like squirrels. they're just everywhere. The mind is like that. It's amazing how the more you get to know it, or the more you don't even spend time with it, you try to avoid it, you realize, okay, this isn't so comfortable to always just be with myself and be with my thoughts. This isn't so pleasant. And then when that discomfort sits in, it's very natural to avoid it and have aversion for it. But that's part of my message and mission as well, is there's so much to learn from being quiet. There's so much to learn from listening to your inner voice and to developing a better relationship with yourself. I think it's with this reflection and with this listening skills that you really see yourself more clearly. You see how your mind works more clearly. You see your mental habits, your mental formations. And with that, you can maybe have a little space for it, right? A little loosening, a little realization of, I don't have to listen to everything my mind says. We're the observer of the mind. We're observing the witness of our thoughts. We're not our thoughts. Our thoughts aren't true. In fact, there's statistics out there like 90 or 80% of what we think is all just illusion, delusion, lies. It's just false, so we really shouldn't be placing so much weight on every thought we have. And I think it's that habitual energy of not having silence that can create that kind of distaste for it.
No, you're absolutely right. We can't trust everything that's in our mind. I know that I had a 3-hour drive back from a show the other night, and it was, like 1 a.m. And the thoughts that I have at 1 a.m., I definitely should not be listening to. Like they're violent, intrusive, sad. They're just so emotional, and I'm just like, I need to get home, get to bed, get to sleep, and then see where my mind is. Because right now, these are all the worst parts of my thoughts coming up at 1 a.m. trying to stay awake on a highway. And I think a lot of us don't realize that, we're just so, like you said, overworked, go, tired and stressed. And then the thoughts that start to creep in aren't thoughts that we would have if we had a good night's sleep and took a little time for some silence and self-care.
Yeah, I agree. It is moments like those 3-hour drives late at night when you hear it so loudly and scarily that you're like, ooh, okay, it isn't the time to listen. But it's amazing when you can kind of catch yourself, even if you open your inbox and you start to spiral and you just notice, ooh, I'm starting to spiral. That's all me just taking it personally. B, being reactive, not responsive. Like when you start to catch those habits, it's just such a relief, stopping that momentum.
Well, I love that you said reactive, not responsive, and catching those thoughts. Because, for a lot of my listeners who have suicidal thoughts, they think because they have them that, we should act on them, and not realizing that there are extenuating circumstances that might be causing us to have those thoughts, like a lack of sleep, poor nutrition, overworked, overstressed, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times it's not or wanting to end our lives as much as it's, um, you know, just wanting to alleviate the pain or not feel like a burden or not feeling any hope. And it's those moments of silence where we can really get clarity on what we want. Lily, it would be easy for people to look at you and think that you've always had these insights and that you've always been a person who can sit with silence. Have you always been this person? or were you like a wild child swinging from branch to branch as a kid?
Mm, good question, Leo. No, I have definitely not always had these realizations. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of leaning in to the pain, the emotional pain, mental pain, physical pain, the nobody's really immune from, rock bottom in ways. And I've been overworked and underappreciated and burnt out. And I felt trapped in a difficult relationship with a difficult man before. And, I know how it feels to feel powerless and insecure and just broken. Like I get that. And it just took a lot of therapy, a lot of books, a lot of hard work, a lot of courage too, right? It's brave to not run away and escape, to to lean into that pain and to find some semblance of a way through it. And it taught me so many lessons. I mean, every day, always lessons, but I think my mind has been very loud, very negative, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of negative self-talk, very loud, very chaotic ever since I can remember. And I first kind of heard about meditation. It was never brought up in my family. I certainly wasn't encouraged by a parent or an aunt or anything, but I somehow discovered it and I signed up for a YMCA camp, a like morning meditation class for a week when I was about 12. So I really early on knew, okay, this is really loud in here. I think it should be a little quieter. So I was already reaching out for strategies really young and tools to try to manage how loud the mind can be and how that so much of our discomfort is just from inside, stirring those pots and swinging from branch to branch. So although I certainly didn't master anything at 12, it's been a long journey. I feel really grateful to be in where I am now and the space I'm in now, so I can help others to find this breath and space and self-care as well.
First of all, shout out to YMCA. I just actually came from there this morning. I got my morning swim in. And growing up, YMCA always had like this negative stigma of like it's dirty, it's old, whatever. But the YMCA's I've been to are dope and amazing. And the fact that you found a meditation space at a YMCA and that's what got you on this journey is a beautiful thing. So shout out to the YMCA's out there, bringing communities together and helping people find silence within themselves. What was going on in your world at 12 years old where you're like, I got to sign up? I mean, it's one thing to stumble on a meditation class. You signed up for this at 12. What was going on in the household? Were the parents divorcing? Or the sibling rivalry? What was happening?
Mm. Well, my parents did divorce or separate when I was 18, but it was a long time coming. So there's that element. But I think it really just felt so internal. I think I just had that almost just predisposition to being very in my head, very observant, very emotional, very sensitive. I certainly I took everything personally when I was young. I was very concerned about what others thought of me and what others said about me, especially. It just has always kind of been a focal point, when I was in my youth and before I've done all this work to get where I am now. But I know there was a lot of chaos in friends and just puberty. But again, Leo, I think it's just it just was my mind. I think that I'm not unique in this. I know we all have these loud, noisy, chaotic minds, but I've just been hyper aware of it ever since I was little. I know it should be. There has to be a way where it's just not so uncomfortable in our head, right? It just there has to be. And I knew it. So that's why I've dedicated, over half of my life to finding these tools to actually have breath and have space in the mind so that it can be more in balance, be a little bit more free, just free inside. That's what I think most important.
As I look back on my childhood, I do remember that feeling of, just needing to get on my bike and ride. And I would ride for hours. And looking back, that was probably my form of meditation because, I wasn't riding my bike to go, meet up with friends or go do a thing. I just knew that when I was emotionally chaotic, mentally just, disoriented, getting on my bike was the thing for me to do. And I burned a lot of calories doing it. I don't know why I stopped doing it, but it was a very healthy way of me just working through my emotions. And then when I got back, whatever was there was gone, at least for the time being. So it uh, leans to your point of when we're young, we just kind of know it's an innate kind of thing of what we need. And maybe we don't know specifically what we need, but we know that we're not getting what we need right now. And so we have to work to find it, to seek it, and to engage with it. So shout out to you at 12 for knowing, that that was your thing, or at least taking a chance. I mean, not that you really did know, but you were curious and open enough to explore it.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up riding your bike as a form of meditation because it absolutely is. I mean, you can actually do mindful bike riding, mindful running, mindful cooking, mindful teeth brushing. There's ways that you can actually be meditating in a way while doing these things consciously. But if in the unconscious, just knowing you need to ride your bike, those repetitive movements actually elicit the parasympathetic response in your body, which is that rest and digest side of our nervous system versus the sympathetic, which is that flight. So repetitive movements, silence, calm sounds like music, mantras, even doing a little inversion, getting your head below your heart. You will slow down your heartbeat, deep breathing, especially with focus on the exhalation. These are all things that can activate your parasympathetic response, which is really when we're able to calm our whole system down. It even improves our immune system when it's activated. It allows our immune function to like go out and search for little viral and bacteria invaders, and better for our memory and our digestive system, our reproduction functioning. All these housekeeping activities are with the parasympathetic. And I think a huge problem, which I touched on again in the beginning, is we're really locked in and as a society into a sympathetic style lifestyle versus naturally we're supposed to swing back and forth every, I don't know, like 80 minutes to 4 hours. It's supposed to be a natural swing, but we're locked in. I mean, think of an 8 hour workday. You are focused, awake, alert, active, thinking, working. And when that happens, it's like being it really wears down the tissues in the body. And it's just that overstimulation with the fight and flight, which actually causes a lot of stress. So it's going to be affecting the musculoskeletal system, respiratory, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, endocrine, nervous, like all of our systems get so affected by stress. So I didn't mean to geek out on the physiological stuff there, but I think that the more we can do these little practices like bicycle riding, meditation, just deep breathing, even for 5 minutes to kind of push the body more towards a state of just, wellness and relaxation where our body can take care of itself. It's amazing. I think there's small things that can go a long way.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, I know especially for me, that we wait until the house is in, because you talked about keeping activities being breath and meditation and repetitive movements, and I think that the challenge for a lot of people is that they wait until they're in extreme fight or flight to then try to incorporate these techniques and then say it doesn't work. Let me know how you feel about this, Lily. It's really about maintaining a daily practice of housekeeping so that we don't spiral out into extreme fight or flight scenarios or chaotic minds where then it becomes you swam too far from shore for the lifeguard to come get you and save you, you know. And so when we practice daily silence, daily deep breathing, going for a walk on a daily basis, um, then we can catch those chaotic moments before they become catastrophes. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that, Leo. I love your analogy too with the lifeguard and going a little too far from shore from it to save you. I mean, the lifeguard can always save you, but if the lifeguard is meditation, then yeah, it's definitely going to be more beneficial when it's not coming from that. The tiger is literally breathing down your neck kind of sensation. I think that having that practice where if you could set a little bell to go off. Plum Village is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese monk. He has this amazing app, totally free, available in the App Store called Plum Village. And you can set it that every 1 hour, a very gentle bell rings, a nice Tibetan bowl type sound. It's very pleasant. And you get to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. And that's what's encouraged with that sound of the bell every hour. And I have it set from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. I don't have it going off in the middle of the night. It's not going to interrupt anything. And it's such a beautiful reminder to just take those 3 deep breaths, close your eyes, come back to your body, come back to your breath, check your perspective, check where tension is in your body. Are you clenching your jaw? Is your shoulders up by your ears? So it's these little strategies of having little reminders here and there to come back, not swim out too far. You can put a little post-it note or a specific colored, sticky dot sticker somewhere that every time you walk by it, to say an affirmation. And or every time you brush your teeth, you can be really dedicated to just brushing your teeth very mindfully, or going for that 15 to 30-minute walk every day. And always knowing, okay, on that walk, that's when I'm listening to Leo Flowers podcast and I'm feeling great because I'm getting my community and my empathy and my humans with me. Or you can choose to do half of it in silence and half of it with some really calming, beautiful piano music. Just these constant, kind of consistent daily efforts. I agree, Leo. It's the key. And unfortunately, the way our brain treats stress, it's all treated like we're being chased by a tiger. Even though it's a paper tiger, even though it's not life-threatening, our body still kicks into high alert, no matter if it's an email or a test or a really something much more extreme, a high danger, a real tiger. If it was a real tiger really chasing you, it's the same biological reaction in our bodies, the same one that just an email or just our thoughts starting to go out of control. Your body will respond the same. So to kind of keep our systems more in balance, having these small strategies is totally key to keeping those adrenal glands from pumping out adrenaline and then the giant chain reaction that happens after that.
Lily, what I love about your story is that you talked about how you went through, you had some emotional issues, some physical issues, difficult relationship. And there were moments where you felt powerless, insecure, and broken. And you went to meditation, you went to therapy, you read books, and you did yoga. And I bring all that up to say that for the listeners out there, for the people out there, that there's not a one stop shop for our health and wellness. It takes a team effort, it takes a group effort, it takes, exploring different modalities, whether, it's going to therapy, reading books, going to the YMCA, riding your bike. There's not a one thing fits all because, and I bring that up because so many people are taking pills and they think that Adderall, that Ambien, that Ativan, that the Lexapro is going to be the solution, and it takes so many things that we have to engage in. And, for us to find that peace, that tranquility, that compassion, and open up our curiosity and creativity. What do you say to that, Lily?
Yeah, yeah, Leo, you got it. Thank you for saying that. And it is true that it isn't a one-stop shop. There isn't, I think, a magic pill that will solve all the problems when it comes to mental health, because it's so all-encompassing. It touches all elements of our wellness and our well-being. It it just has all these sneaky little tendrils that just by taking a pill that kind of deactivates certain hormones or certain neural pathways or whatever it's trying to do in your brain.
What was your physical, because I have friends who teach yoga and practice yoga, and there's definitely been injuries in that realm. What was your physical injury?
Sure, yeah, no, I ever since I was really little, I was like pretty competitive in soccer too. And I got pretty severe patella tendonitis in both of my knees as I think it's kicked in when I was 14. And I mean, it was so painful that my mom would say, "Oh, do you want to, go shopping?" And I'd say, "No, my knees hurt too bad." And I'd just be on the couch with ice packs and for hours and hours because it just was in so much physical pain for a little while there. And then I've had some various other things, I have a very beautiful little spirit home. I love my body. I'm very lucky to have this body as the home for my spirit, but it's it's not immune to all of the things that crop up. It's just, I think no matter what physical thing someone's struggling with, what I had very severe acne for a while too, whether it's acne or a GI problem. I also had really tough GI problems, which were more related, I think, to my stress than anything else. But at that particular phase in my life, when they were really on high overdrive, I wasn't in a place where I even thought I was stressed. It's just so hidden. Um, but it's through these practices, as you said, Leo, that we come out of it. We kind of safeguard ourselves. It's like every single time I wake up and I choose not to look at my phone and I repeat an affirmation 3 times in my head, I count that as like one layer. Then I sit and I meditate for 10 minutes. That's another layer. It's like these protective coatings we're just dipping ourselves into or covering ourselves with to help safeguard our well-being. It's a daily practice. And of course, you can take 2 steps forward and feel like you're taking 10 steps back. But with each time you do it, you're continuing to build that muscle of self-care, the muscle of self-awareness. And I think that's where it comes in.
So, having a GI gastrointestinal issues and also acne, were there changes to your nutrition and diet that you've made? I know a lot of yogas are usually like plant-based but I know some carnivore yogis. What is your nutritional preference?
Great question. Yeah, I'm actually a vegan nutritionist. I became vegan about 5 years ago and a vegetarian. Ooh, wow. We might be coming up here on my 10-year vegetarian anniversary here, November. All right. That's fun. Yeah, so I've been plant-based for a long time, and I found that when I made that transition, it was during my GI problems about 10 years ago. And I it just changed everything for me. I felt so much lighter and brighter and cleaner. And when you just feel a little lighter, not as heavy and weighed down, it felt amazing. I'm a big believer that how you eat will, of course, impact your entire system. You're actually becoming what you eat. In that, I know people make that joke, but if you think about it, you eat a banana and the banana literally disappears. It is in your body. Its cells become your cells. all of that minerals, all of whatever your body can absorb at that time, it gets absorbed and incorporated. And it's amazing how food has that ability to really impact even our mental health. And there's things you can eat, like sunflower seeds are phenomenal to eat first thing in the morning. I read a study saying how it has these very, very micronutrients, which can help kind of guard against depression, was what the findings were saying. So if anyone out there is interested in having some sunflower seeds on their morning toast or something, I'm a big believer in also finding these little foods that can help us feel better and more grounded from the nutrient standpoint, as well as even from an energetic standpoint. I also believe in Ayurveda, which is the science of life. It's an ancient Indian, really, really old system of medicine for treating each person as a person, not as a patient. And there's no one size fits all answer for anyone, but there's a lot in there, of course, about nutrition and food. And it's amazing what they already had figured out like 10,000 years ago. They knew a lot that we know today that I don't even know how they knew it. But just by knowing more about yourself and your body and your energy, okay, I'm a person who I need a lot of root vegetables to help me feel really grounded. I need carrots. I need parsnips. I need anything that's been in the ground a long time to really just stabilize me, help that very wind-based, very chaotic, windy mind stay more still, versus if I'm always eating popcorn, salads, chips, these things that are very light and airy, it helps. It just makes my thoughts spin even faster in a way. And when you discover more of these things, these energetic elements to the food as well, and how that can affect it's called dosha. It's your kind of personality type or personality characteristics. There's so much information that you can use and incorporate and inform your decisions for your mental health.
Wow, I'd never thought about that. Root vegetables to keep you grounded and those light it's so funny because I just stopped eating salads. I was like, I don't know, me and salads don't really get along. I just feel I don't know, dysregulated, or it's just something off about it. And but I do love root vegetables. I haven't been having them for a while, but I might have to come back to them. Now, what about beans and like quinoa? What do you think about those?
Yeah, beans are amazing. A great source of protein, especially for vegans. It's going to be your beans and your nuts that are really, cashews, almonds, and everything, and seeds and grains that come in for your protein. So I love beans. It's a funny sentence. I love beans, but I really enjoy eating them at my midday meal. It's when you really have a lot of, it's going to sound woo woo, but you have more digestive power in the afternoon. The sun is at its highest and your functioning of your system is at its optimum level. If you're eating such a really heavy, really protein dense, whether you eat meat or whether you eat beans at night, we're not going to continue to move for many more hours after that. We're probably eating dinner and then probably sitting on the couch. We don't have that digestive fire that we need to really be working through it. So I really do love beans. Quinoa is great. Definitely, if we're opting for white rice or opting for quinoa, you're going to have a lot more micronutrients in the quinoa, a lot more fiber. It's a great breakfast to switch out and swap for oats. Some easy recipes, just making your quinoa, then adding some apples and cinnamon, walnuts, or some berries. I love adding cinnamon and maybe a little, some dates or some brown sugar, whatever type of sweetener you need to have in there. But good questions, big fans. And if with the beans, pro tip, if you could have any tomatoes with it or anything with citrus, it's going to help you absorb your protein faster if you have a little citrus with that.
What? I didn't know you could swap out oats for quinoa. Let's go. I'm excited. I'm excited. I got a
Boom.
whole
Enjoy,
bag.
Leo.
I am gonna do that. And you're right. I was talking to my mom. My mom is from Belize, and I was asking her like what they ate because my grandmother lived to be 96 and never needed glasses or hearing aids. And she said like they would eat a regular breakfast. It was probably more like eggs and something else, and then a heavy lunch, and then they would have tea for dinner or like a light snack, maybe a few leftovers from lunch, but something very light so that um, they weren't bombarding their digestive system as they were trying to sleep at night, which is so the opposite of how we typically do it in America, where dinner is like your main meal, a appetizer, a salad, a dessert, a this and a that, and then none of us are getting good sleep as a result of that heavy meal.
Yeah, I don't think you really feel good after a big meal. I think we intuitively, if you're paying attention, oh, I feel bloated. I feel heavy. I feel like all I want to do is lay on the couch. Like, if that's how you're feeling, something's not right. It's a big signal if you just feel like, oh, I have no energy. Oh, I don't feel great. Oh, I just want to lay down. If that's how you're feeling, that's your body's telling you loud and clear, okay, time to make some changes.
Now, I'm a big tea drinker. I'm gonna assume that Lily Allen-Duenas is also a tea drinker. What do you have a tea for the morning and a tea at night? Now I'm just picking your brain.
No, I'm glad you asked. I'm a huge tea person. This is funny that you you asked me this, Leo. I used to be a coffee girl. Used to be a 2 or 3 cup a day when I was back in my quote unquote previous life in marketing in the US. Big coffee girl, and then I never really was big on. I have a long history in my family of alcoholism, so I've always been very careful. No drugs, very little alcohol, and I'm very careful. And I didn't even think anything of coffee. But one time I was in India and I was seeing this Ayurvedic doctor, and he was asking me all of those and doctor type questions and asked me about coffee. And I said, no, yeah, I drink a cup or two a day. Usually it's the only thing I really do. Just really helps me feel good. And I look forward to it every day. And he was explaining how coffee is really acidic. And at the same time, it's a diuretic and a stimulant. So it is just like aggressively attacking your tummy, especially if you put milk and sugar there. It is essentially a perfect storm to create digestive chaos. So, and if you're feeling, you've had a couple cups, that jittery sensation, that you're quick to startle, it's in a way, it's that part of that fight or flight. You're just jumpy and you don't feel great. But the doctor, I was not suffering from any of that really, but he said to me, "Oh, do you not think you're strong enough to quit?" And the way he phrased that, me being me, I said, "Oh my gosh, of course I am." So ever since then, I haven't had any coffee. I do a cup of black tea in the morning. For me, I like Tetley's or I like a black masala chai. I'm happy with pretty much any black tea. Afternoon, I'll have a green tea, jasmine green, usually, or something floral. And then in the evenings, you're going to absolutely find me with a big rotation of teas. I have boxes from all over the world. I was just in Egypt and I didn't buy any souvenirs, but I bought a lot of spices and teas. That's how I travel.
Yeah, that's exactly how I travel. Spices and teas. Those are my favorite. And then yeah, I just got into the matcha green tea, and I like to put those in my smoothie sometimes.
Ooh, I've
Um,
never done a matcha smoothie. Tell me your
uh,
recipe.
so basically, it's just like if you're making a protein smoothie. So it's banana, protein powder, ice, water, and then I put in powdered matcha. So there's two different types of powder. There's the ceremonial grade, and then there's the I forget what the other grade is called, but the other one is for smoothies and like to be blended, whereas the other matcha tea is like more like with just hot water or oat milk, where you would whisk it with the bamboo whisk. So there's one for your smoothie, and then there's one that you would drink more traditionally with the bamboo whisk. And they say it like on the front when you go to get it, it'll let you know if it's for your smoothie or not. So I just get that and then put it in there. So now my protein shake has a little kick to it. and I find that it doesn't disrupt my sleep. That's what I like about the matcha green tea is it's enough caffeine to make me feel awake, but not like hyper or like too alert. However, I will say that I was just told I have asthma. I have well, not told, but I just discovered I have asthma this year, and just developed it. And having any type of caffeine before my workout can trigger my asthma symptoms. So when I do have caffeine, I'll have to have it after my workouts as opposed to before. So I will say that.
All right. Well, that's a great recipe. I've never thought to put matcha in the smoothies. I was making it for a little while. I was doing kind of green tea matcha with a little bit of almond milk type of, I mean, I guess it's called a latte. There was no coffee involved, but I was really loving that for a while. So I never once thought to put it in the smoothie. I bet it definitely gives it a little health boost.
Oh, so and it's so good. Earlier, Lily, you talked about, being in a difficult relationship, and I know so many of my listeners are in challenging relationships. What gave you the strength to get out of that difficult relationship? Because a lot of times we're blaming ourselves for what's happening, or we're making excuses for the other person. How did you get yourself out of there?
I wish I'd gotten out a little quicker. So I can relate to any of your listeners, Leo, who have that struggle because it's so painful. It's so hard and it feels like you're just powerless and stuck. And it's so scary when your whole life has become centered around someone else and your identity, maybe even, right? Or maybe they've been telling you over and over again, how powerless you are and making you feel that way and your self-talk is so negative you don't believe you're strong enough it's just the worst. I'm really sorry for anyone out there who's suffering from that. It does take a lot of courage, a lot of strength, and I was very lucky to had a great therapist and I was working with her for a few years. And when I finally told her I'd moved out and I'd ended it. Finally, she looked at me, gave a big exhale, and said, "Ah, it's about time." And I was like, "What do you mean? You could have told me to do this ages ago." But of course, therapists don't tell you what to do. You have to come there yourself. So I had great friends who kind of held that mirror up of how bad it was getting, but I wasn't listening for a long time. And then, finally a line gets crossed. And after that line gets crossed, there's no, you can't uncross it. So for me, it kind of took to get into a certain place for me to start saying to friends, "Hey, if I think I'm ready to end this, can I move in?" type of thing. I had to start having a strategy. I had to have an exit route, and then I could make that decision. But therapy was amazing, as was for me reading books on psychology and on kind of in that category of kind of self-care or self-betterment or whatever, however we're going to be categorizing that. But the more I learned about attachment theory or boundaries or all these different kind of things that might be relevant to what I was experiencing in my relationship, kind of helped me to learn, okay, I'm not alone. There's some explanations for this as well, a little bit, some biological, some psychological. And the more information I had, the more kind of tools I felt like I had in my little tool belt. Also, of course, with the help of therapists, friends, a lot of self work to get to that place.
And from the time that you actually left, to the time you thought about leaving, how long was that? Like 6 months, 2 years?
1 year, maybe a hair over 1 year.
And I asked that because I think, like you said, a lot of books helped you feel like you weren't alone in this, and a lot of people feel like they are alone in their situation and are beating themselves up for not having got out sooner. When I talk to a lot of people who are in difficult relationships, it takes them a year to 2 years because, like you said, there's also the financial component of where am I going to stay? You were lucky enough to be able to stay with a friend, and then you had to strategize. You couldn't just You didn't just wake up one morning and be like, this relationship doesn't work. I'm leaving today. Like it took a year of planning and gathering materials and figuring out what your exit plan was going to be versus just having the thought and then doing it. So for the listeners out there who are strategizing, who are taking their time, just know that that is what it requires because it's such an entanglement of resources that when you have with somebody else that to finally break yourself free is going to take time and a strategy and a team.
Yeah, I'm a perfect word for it, Leo. Entanglement. It's messy, it's tangled, it's tough, and it does take time.
Besides the books on attachment, were there any other books that you read? Are there any fictional books that you've read that made you feel less alone or that really spoke to you, kind of like a self-help book, even though it wasn't a self-help book?
Ooh, nothing is coming to mind in terms of fiction, but I will mention Anne Lamott. She does write some fiction, but I really prefer her self-help books, or those books that are kind of more in that nonfiction, how about how messy life is realm. I love her audiobooks. I love listening to the sound of her voice, and she's so poetic, and she just hits the nail on the head in like 3 sentences, and you just feel it in your heart, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's exactly, it is so hard, and it is so tough. And she, every time that she actually is in a high building, a high place, a high space. She always just fantasizes about throwing herself off the top, always. And she talks about it. And she talks about how just hard it is to stay alive and to be alive, and how it's a gift, but also just she's real. She's really real. And if you're looking for a voice out there besides our wonderful Leo Flowers to feel kind of, okay, I am really there, I'm really not alone. Someone's out there, and they get it. They get it and they feel it, and they're writing about it in a way that makes me also laugh. She's hilarious and she's creative and yeah, powerful, passionate. Just her empathetic capacity dazzles me. So check out Anne Lamott.
Yeah, she's great. I just finished Bird by Bird, and you're
Mm.
right. Like she has such a beautiful way of articulating her feelings and experiences, and she just brings you in. You mentioned how she does talk about going to the top of a building and wanting to throw herself off. Have you been to that place before?
I don't think I've been to that place, not at the top of a building. Certainly not, but I've been in a space where yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about it in a more serious way. But for me, I was lucky that it wasn't something I struggled with for a really sustained amount of time. And I haven't read Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. I loved her book Help, Thanks, Wow, and Hallelujah. Anyway, those are two that I would probably recommend.
Excellent. And then last two questions. What are you looking forward to, Lily Allen, doing this?
What am I looking forward to? I always look forward to my morning cup of tea every day. It's such a celebration for me. I look forward to my wonderful and loving husband coming home from work. Finally found a really, really good one. So keeping him. And I'm looking forward to my daily yoga practice. More in the long run, I'm really looking forward to our times here in this pandemic. I'm looking forward to being more in the shadow of it. So, or coming out of the shadow of the pandemic. And I'm looking forward to things opening up and being able to see more loved ones and travel a bit more. And so I'm excited for.
Yeah, I really love your podcast because you're always featuring people from different parts of the world, Burma, Egypt, Sri Lanka, Budapest, and different parts. And so it's a way of like reminding us how connected we are and how common our experiences are. Tell people where they can find you and plug all your things.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. So I am the host of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast, and that is a podcast you can find anywhere you listen. Its focus is to shine a light on the global yoga ecosystem and all of the interconnected aspects of the whole path of yoga. So each week I interview a yoga teacher from a different country around the world, and I would love for you to tune in and check it out and learn more about yoga, meditation, sound healing, sound therapy, transformational yoga. There's so many teachers from all over of so much to share. So tune in, tap in, join, and let me know your thoughts. I'm on Instagram as well, and Facebook and Pinterest and Twitter. I feel like wherever you're at, I'll be there too at Wild Yoga Tribe. Also, my website, wildyogatribe.com, packed full of resources, really, really robust blog. I write a lot. I'm a freelance writer as well. So I do a lot of writing, and I have free yoga classes on YouTube and free meditations on Insight Timer. And of course, if you want to work with me in private settings online, I have great spaces for that as well. And you can find out more on my website.
I love it. And last question. I always imagine there's one person listening in who may be on the precipice of wanting to end their life. Before you kill yourself, what would you say to them, Lily Allen-Duenas?
You're loved. You're loved. You're wanted. You're meant to be here. You're worthy. Yeah, just I think it all comes from love.
Thank you so much, Lily Allen. Thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for you going to get help, for you calling the 1-800-SUICIDE or 1-800-273-TALKS or any of the international phone numbers, whether you're in Burma, Sri Lanka, Laos, wherever you are, there are international phone numbers for you. You can talk, you can chat, you can text. There are Facebook groups. There are groups that you can join. There are financial resources available to you. Those are all listed in the show notes. You can always go to thrivewithleo.com for one-on-one coaching with yours truly. Let's get to tomorrow together. Thank you so much, Lily Allen.
Thank you, Leo. It's been a joy to be with you.